Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the big number. As always, we do this show every Thursday at Yahoo Sports. Dan, what's going on, man?
Tom, have either of us been fired since the start of this podcast? It's late in the season, but apparently that doesn't matter anymore. Are you aware?
Well, if it's anything like the Denver Nuggets, it's not just us. It's going to be everyone upstairs too. Cleaning house. This is a crazy week in the NBA. Like, we thought Taylor Jenkins was the craziest coaching firing in NBA history, but guess what? Hold my beer, says the Denver Nuggets. That's what we're going to do for this week's big number. This week's big number is 2, as in the championship curse rule of 2. I am coining it. It is absurd. But if you look back on like the last 7 champions, like taking out the Boston Celtics of last year, but every champion since like 2018, after 2 years after winning the title, something terrible happens to your franchise that either makes you want to fire your coach or says, yeah, I don't want to have to make the playoffs. Like 2 years. That's it. We're not talking 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. If you look at the 2018 Golden State Warriors, 2 years later, they missed the playoffs. 2019 Toronto Raptors, 2 years later, they missed the playoffs. 2020 Lakers, Frank Vogel, 2 years later, fired, missed the playoffs. 2021, the Milwaukee Bucks, coach fired, Mike Budenholzer. 2022, Golden State Warriors, 2 years later, they missed the playoffs. Steve Kerr, still head coach. But 2023, Denver Nuggets, Mike Malone, less than 2 full seasons. 3 games left before the postseason starts. A mere hours after Taylor Jenkins melted our faces off that the Memphis Grizzlies and Zach Kleiman said, we have a sense of urgency around here, so we're going to wait until right before the postseason to fire our coach and 2 assistant coaches. And the Denver Nuggets and Josh Kroenke were like, look, watch this. Right before the postseason, we're going to fire the head coach of a leading MVP candidate, Jokic, and we're going to tell Calvin Booth, our GM, that was the GM during the 2023 NBA Finals Championship, even though a lot of the core and a lot of the team was constructed by the previous GM, Tim Connolly, and they decide, yep, he's gone too. So, Dan, I'm wondering, after watching this, from the Memphis Grizzlies, where we're watching and doing a pod a week ago, talking about how this is the most insane coaching firing in NBA history. And then a week later, everything is undone. And now we have a new bar that we have to set on the scale of like Dan Devine's Richter scale, like 1 to 10. How stunning was this? Or you've reached the point with after the Luka trade and after the Taylor Jenkins thing that you're just like numb to it all?
It is, at this point, there's nothing, it feels like the box has been opened and it's not going to close again. Like, everything is possible. All is permitted. Everything can happen. If Luka can get traded for Anthony Davis in the middle of the night, then sure, teams can fire their coaches 3 games before. They maybe have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. What the hell? Why not? Who cares? The thing I kept thinking of was, so I was in the locker room the night the Nuggets won the championship. I was covering that game and I got to be in the locker room the night, and I was talking to Calvin Booth and I asked him I know this job is all work, but like, how long do you get to enjoy this? And he was like, tomorrow morning we got a meeting about like draft prospects. And all I could think about was like, man, you should have taken a little bit more time and enjoyed some beers, brother. Like, because who knows, the job won't love you back. Anyway, but even if in a world where 2 hours after these things happen, local reporters say like, it's ultimately unsurprising. It was surprising. Everyone was pretty surprised. And we should be shocked by this. It's 3 games before the end of the season, as you mentioned, 5 days before the end of the regular season. The latest firing of any coach, I believe, since Hubie Brown 44 years ago. And a coach that was the winningest coach in franchise history, the coach of the only championship team in franchise history, and the general manager. Like, I don't know when the last time was that the entire apparatus got sent out the door, let alone this late in the game. It's nuts. We are recording this before the Nuggets Wednesday night game against the Kings. Who knows? By the time this comes out, the Kings could be in 4th in the West. It's all like the pressure and the intensity on each line in the standings, each round in the postseason, how far you get, what kind of gate revenue that generates, all that. Seems like everything is so intense right now that everybody's losing their minds.
Yeah, I was losing my mind, and I was recording another podcast at the same time, and I was like, wait, Can we check? Is that a centel? Is that centel? Like, that's now where it is, where the NBA is outdoing NBA centel, where you're like, I have to verify this fact from Shams Charania. Every time he tweets now, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to check centel, like see if it's got the right, not a total misinformation campaign, because that's where the NBA is now. This is ludicrous. And it's like, well, you know, we hold ourselves to a high standard, and we'll get to Josh Kroenke's comments that he gave to the TV network. But it just seems like, you know, the whole argument this year for the debate between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic has been underpinned by the fact that, like, the Thunder are still pretty good without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, they're still going to be a really good team. The thing that was like boosting Jokic's candidacy beyond the fact that he's averaging a triple-double was that they can't play basketball without Jokic on the floor. And you know who agrees with that? The Kroenkes. Yeah. They were like, yeah, you know what? This is crazy. Like, this is nuts that, like, Jokic, as good as he is, we could, as Josh Kroenke said on the record, he's like, we need to shake the tree to squeeze out more juice. A lot of metaphors in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. But that is stunning. Also, something I've been harping on is, like, as good as Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are, I had to write this column for Yahoo Sports. Go read it now if you haven't. Nikola Jokic is the first MVP since I tracked this in 1984. So what is that? 50 years, 40 years, carry the two. 40 years of MVPs. This is the first one, Dan, in which an MVP in his first 10 years of his career has never had an all-star teammate, an all-NBA teammate, or an all-defensive team, first or second team, all-defense, first or second team teammate while playing with that teammate. It's never happened. In fact, of the last, 24 MVPs, the average number of teammate awards, all league teammate awards, is 16 for those MVPs, and Jokic has 0. So what we're seeing here is an organization that has said enough. Like, we need more help around Jokic. Obviously, Calvin Booth, you're out of here. And we need someone to better align those talents. Jamal Murray, he got called out by Michael Malone. Not called out. I mean, it's weird to say or to, like, caveat because, like, Michael Malone's now fired. So maybe the ownership was reading into these comments like I was. But he was like, this hamstring injury used to be day by day, but now it's super weird, and it's a weird one. Who knows if he'll be back before the end of the before the start of the playoffs? And there's just been a lot of, like, really strong comments from Michael Malone, and I was like, the organization has to be backing that guy because he feels like he can speak his mind. And evidently, nope. And Dan, that's probably not even the craziest or the strongest Michael Malone comments, the one about Jamal Murray recently. There's been another one that's been surfacing after he played the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, it was after a recent loss to the Portland Trailblazers, which on one hand is not the, badge of dishonor. It might have once been because the Blazers have been playing pretty great ball for a while now, but still, you're a team with championship aspirations. That's a game you'd like to think you go in there and you come out with a W. And afterward, Michael Malone being very clear said, like, about the accountability or lack thereof, like, quote, they're not going to go back and watch their minutes because nobody watches their minutes. Nobody watches film. So we'll have to show them the film. And it's like, that is about as bald and brazen a call out of your players' lack of professionalism, their lack of engagement as it gets. And I think what we've learned since, or what it indicates since, is that's also Michael Malone kind of laying it bare. They're not listening to me anymore. And so we talked about you mentioned the Zach Kleiman urgency as a core principle thing. And, Josh Kroenke was intimated similar things in his post-firing comments. There is a sense that, like, if we think this has run its course, then why wait? If we don't feel confident that this iteration of the team, whether because of the decisions that Calvin Booth made in roster management, because of the decisions that Michael Malone has made in the way he deploys that roster, because of the health and availability of our critical number 2 player, because of number 3 player in Aaron Gordon, and because of the maybe lack of overall growth of our other important player, Michael Porter Jr. Whatever the reasons are that we got here, if we don't think this team has a ceiling that goes beyond maybe play in, maybe first round, then as currently constituted, then why not make this change now? But I think the thing that was most interesting to me about that is, you mentioned Josh Kroenke had an interview with the team-owned Altitude Sports outlet, and the quotes, the lines that he was saying was like, there were certain trends that were very worrisome to me, but they get masked by a few wins here and there. And as you know, in the world of professional sports, when winning and losing is your currency, winning can mask a lot of things. Okay, so first off, don't win. Bad. It's bad when you win.
Masking.
No good, very bad. Don't do it.
Things. Yeah.
But I think there's more to that group than has been accomplished so far. How much more is in that group? I don't think I know the answer. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. But I have a belief that there's more in that group that can be accomplished. And I look forward to seeing what they can do. So on one hand, it's the mix we've got right now with front office, with coaching, whatever. It's not getting it done. We believe in this roster, though. We believe there's a championship team in here that wasn't getting put on the floor properly. And so now it's to David Adelman to find out if he can do the same, or if he can, solve the puzzle in a way that Michael Malone was no longer able to, get that buy-in in a way that he was no longer able to, and to do it with 3 games of training wheels or runway before you head into, potentially a win or go home game or a first round series on the road. It's an awfully intense situation.
Dude, Dan, they got swept by the Washington Wizards this year.
That's a bad sign, right? That shouldn't happen.
Losses also mask, I guess, because he didn't get fired after that. Like, if you're losing to the Washington Wizards, arguably the worst team in NBA history by point differential, then maybe this isn't working out. That was March 15th. We waited a month after they lost to the Washington Wizards for the second time this year. You're trying to win a championship, and your floor is losing to the Kyle Kuzma-less is a great word. It sounds like a cloud of some sort, a Kuzma-less. If you lose to that Wizards team, that's it. Like, you've seen enough. But apparently now this 4-game skid, Jamal Murray's been out. It just seems like this is a sense of urgency, but in a way, it's the opposite. Like, if you had feelings about this was not going in the right direction, do this before you get to the trade deadline so you can make some changes at the trade deadline. Calvin Booth has been notoriously slow in terms of the activity at the trade deadline. Not many mid-season trades. He let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope so he could go pay Christian Brown. Christian Brown's been great. But the idea is they signed Jamal Murray to a large contract. There's a lot of stuff on the books going forward. And I'm looking at this situation and I'm saying, man, they got to be so thankful that Jokic is the most even-keeled superstar in the NBA, that he has never been one to pound his chest and demand more from the front office, publicly at least. We don't know what happens behind closed doors or what he says at his horse races. But what we do know is that in NBA history, there haven't been a lot of guys who have not played with a co-pilot or a star player. Michael had Scottie Pippen. KG was the most starless before this, the guy who had the fewest number of all-star appearances by teammates since ever. He had Tom Gugliotta in his second year in the league. Tom Googs, all-star. He had Sam Cassell, all-NBA second team. He had Wally Zerbiak. Jokic would dream for guys who were that well-regarded or that good at least once. And that's not to say Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are bad. It's just, I feel like Jokic, we would have a much different appraisal of how good he is if he wasn't supposed to shoulder all of this offensive. We're going to talk about this in the 4 little numbers. We're also going to talk to a guy who would look very good next to Nikola Jokic, because Jokic has never had an all-defensive player, first or second team on his team ever. Tamani Kamara of the Portland Trailblazers. We're going to talk to him later in the show, joining the big number later in this program. We're going to also talk about the 4 things that the Denver Nuggets, without Calvin Booth and without Michael Malone, need to do from starting now to this offseason to keep Nikola Jokic happy. And as I wrote about on Yahoo Sports, I wouldn't be surprised if any other player, given the fact that the supporting cast has been this poor by historical standards, that they would ask for a trade. They would ask out. But I would be surprised if it was Jokic because it's just not in his DNA. But if they are not going to have that problem on their hands, they need to do 4 things. And let's talk about it after the break, Dan. All right. As a reminder, we're going to talk to defensive maestro, Tamani Kamara, and he's going to do some gestures, some miming for us on the program. Later, coming up, we'll bring him onto the show. But first, let's hear your 4 little numbers, Dan. What's the first one?
First little number this week is 4.8%. Going back to the 2003-04 season, we've had 84 teams make the conference finals, right? 21 years, 4 teams, 84. Only 4 of those 84 teams, 4.8%, have finished the regular season 20th or worse in defensive efficiency, according to our friends at Cleaning the Glass. So 84 teams, 4 of them have finished 20th or worse in defensive efficiency and still made it to the Final Four. Those teams, last year's Pacers, they were 24th. LeBron's final 2 Cavs teams, 2016-17, 17-18, they were 21st and 29th, respectively, before they flipped the switch. And the 2009-10 Suns, that's not a 7 seconds or less team. That's an Alvin Gentry Suns team after the initial sort of thrust of the Suns. They were 20th. So
the 80 others that were this bad defensively were not making it to the conference finals.
Yeah, the 80 other teams were all like middle of the pack or above, and overwhelmingly top 5, top 10. So for the Nuggets to, if Josh Kroenke saying, we believe there's more in here, we believe there's a mix in here, for it to get to that level, it would be a pretty significant historical outlier for the last couple of decades of NBA basketball. And the formula looks something like friendly path in the first couple of rounds, like Indiana got Milwaukee without Giannis last year, and the Knicks had all the injuries in the second round. You have the best offense in the league. That was that Suns team. Or you have one of the greatest players of all time at the absolute peak of his powers, flipping the switch and deciding to just carry everyone like LeBron. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Nuggets could do that. But there's a pathway. Say the hypothetical is like they land in the 4-5, they play the Clippers, Kawhi gets hurt, they deal with somebody in
basically the
second
Pacers
round.
Last year. The Pacers got to the conference finals because there was a bunch of injuries, and they had, not to say that they weren't deserving.
Yes,
but
of course.
They faced a Bucks team, a Knicks team that were severely shorthanded, and that's kind of what you're praying for if you're the Nuggets, is like a lot of things have to break our way, or else we're going to be a first round sweep. Like that is what we're looking at, is the Denver Nuggets. They've already decided, Dan, the coach is not good enough. The GM is not good enough. What is it going to take for the players to be like, yeah, we're not good enough this year? Like I could understand if they were just like, this year's not our year.
Yeah. And just to lay it bare, because I don't know that we said it up front. The Nuggets are in the bottom third of the league in defensive efficiency. Since March 1st, the only teams that have had worse defenses than them are the tankers, Philly, Charlotte, the San Antonio, Utah, and New Orleans, the injury-decimated Mavericks, and the hollowed-out husk of what used to be the Phoenix Suns. That's it. That's the level of defense that this Denver Nugget team has been playing for the last 5-6 weeks. It's the worst defense full season that Denver has had since Jokic became a full-time starter. So when you talk about those worrying trends, winning has masked some bad trends. Josh Kroenke did have a point. This defense has been bad for a while, and it looks like it might be bad enough to keep them out of serious contention. As something that I read, I think it was maybe TomTheFinder.com, somebody smart that I know wrote about this Denver Nuggets defense not too long ago.
Yeah. The elephant in the room that, if the Kroenkes are not subscribers, they agree that the elephant in the room is that they are so bad defensively. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Go into the luxury tax to subscribe to Tom's newsletter. Come on.
It's not, it's a few bucks here and there, but you know what? The front office for the Denver Nuggets have historically, their reputation has been that they are cheap, that they do not pay for talent. We saw Tim Connolly leave for a big package over into the Minnesota Timberwolves. I talked about Kevin Garnett and looking at, how few stars that he had next to him during his tenure with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I remember talking to Chris Bosh in Miami in 2016, I want to say it was. And I was like, who was it that convinced you that you needed to leave Toronto? And he's like, it was Kevin Garnett. I was like, dude, but you hate that guy. He hates you. And he's like, no, we do. But like, honestly, I had talked to him at All-Star. It was, I think, 2010 All-Star right before he left. And he's like, he had a heart-to-heart with KG and was like, yo, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, depending on the front office and the coaching staff here in Toronto, it's the team that drafted me. I feel like I have this loyalty to them. And he said it to reporters, but he also told Chris Bosh this, is like, man, loyalty can backfire at a certain point. And I think today's NBA player, superstar, feels that when Luka Doncic gets traded after winning the Western Conference Finals at 25 years old, is that like loyalty is overrated at a certain point. And Jokic, like, you're loyal to the Denver Nuggets and to Michael Malone and to Calvin Booth and Tim Connolly. They're all gone. And we have no idea how much Jokic had involved in that. I'm guessing not much, just because that's how Jokic is. But at the same time, it's like, if you're Jokic, can we please get some elite defenders and not let KCP go, not let Bruce Brown go? And like, granted, there are some contractual things there that they got.
Yeah, CBA involved there.
But there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way with all these years of Jokic and his game that you can't surround him with better defensive talent. And Russell Westbrook isn't that, right? Like, I'm sorry, he's not. And so the thing about Russell Westbrook was he was supposed to ease the burden on Jokic's offensive shouldering, like his offensive load, his responsibility offensively. But Dan, I kind of feel like it's almost more offensive responsibility for Jokic than he's ever had. Is there any number that can back me up on that?
Yeah, you're very right there, Tom Haberstroh. So our first little number was about the defensive work that needs to get done. We've got to figure out how to improve this 20th ranked defense, bottom third defense. Our second little number is 105.5. That's how many touches per game Nikola Jokic is averaging, according to Second Spectrum tracking data this season. If it sounds like a lot, that's because it is. It not only leads the NBA, which is something that Jokic has done for the last 6 years. This will make 7. But it's also the highest number of his career. So he's led the NBA in touches per game for 6 years, going on 7. This is more than ever. It's about 3.5 per game more than last season, about 4.5 per game more than 21-22. That's the year where they didn't have Jamal Murray at all, when he was rehabbing his torn ACL. So
and he's
everything
more now.
was Jokic.
And it's more now.
It's 4.5 more per game now than it was during the no Jamal Murray at all season. And that higher workload shows up in other areas too, like second highest usage rate of his career, taking almost 20 shots per game, which would be a career high. Second highest time of possession of his entire career. All these indicators of just like how often he has the ball, how often he has to direct everything, how much he has to do himself, the degree to which his buckets are unassisted, all of these things. It's obviously resulted in incredible production. Like, we're talking about a 30-point triple-double damn near, and like his MVP case rests heavily on that. And the Nuggets offense is still awesome, but you'd have to figure that whoever makes up that Denver's next brain trust, they have to find a way to reduce this dependence, right?
Yeah, and look, I think that is a offensive stat, but I think you can spin it also as a defensive stat in the sense that this guy, when he's the closest defender at the rim, opponents are shooting 70% with Jokic guarding the rim. And a lot of that is because he's exhausted. You don't want to have this dude be also a rim protector, contesting the rim or drawing fouls at the rim, because he does everything. He is not just the sun, but all the planets, all the stars, all of the gravity in the entire solar system is Jokic offensively. So how could we possibly ask him to also be a rim protector? And that was one of the things I wrote about, is like, this is untenable. The offensive load is so insane on Jokic's shoulders that he's got to be the best three-point shooter, the best distributor, the best screen setter, the hub, the best dribbler, the best getting into our offense guy. And then, oh yeah, you got to go guard the paint the entire time, meet at the level, and then run back to the rim and defend. It's insane to ask him to do both of those things. And so the elephant in the room was exactly that. There's too much on one side, and asking him to do anything defensively is it's as the Cronkies have demonstrated, it's unacceptable what they've done. So how do you get him to be a better rim protector, or at least have the energy to do that? You got to get more offense from the other guys. And Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., great cutters. But hey, can we get more offense out of them where they're creating more? Or Jamal Murray, depending on him to create more instead of just the two-man game with Jokic? there's got to be other ways. There's got to be more ways to allow Jokic to be more than just a handsy guy defensively and be more, I don't know, able to move a lot more defensively and get to spots and not have to defend and have him putting out fires all the time defensively, because the team is not good defensively. I think 22nd adjusted defensive rating over at Dunks and Threes. So 20th is bad. But when you look at their strength of schedule, it even gets worse than that, worse than the Brooklyn Nets that are obviously trying to go for ping pong balls. They have a better defense. The Atlanta Hawks have a better defense than the Denver Nuggets. And I don't know if they have that other gear. But hey, the Cronkies believe that they have more juice to squeeze. We'll see that coming up. What's your next one?
Well, I just have to say, I feel like I hear an army of James Harden, Trae Young, other stands being like, we've been saying this thing about the defense for years. Everyone got mad at how these guys weren't playing any defense. And now all of a sudden it's Jokic and it's okay. So I just want to say, I hear this coming from outside here in the avenue. So I just want to say, I hear you guys. Our third little number. So we talked about the defense needs to get better. We talked about there needs to be a little bit more diversification in terms of who else can do stuff on the offensive end. Third little number is 0.2, which is the total value over replacement player of every Nugget under age 25, 25 and under. So part of the whole structure here was, if you're going to pay Jokic and you're going to pay Murray and you're going to pay Aaron Gordon and you're going to pay Michael Porter Jr., you've got that core four locked up, and that's going to give you the best starting five or starting four in the world. And then you're going to have to fill in around the edges. And Calvin Booth's game plan was, we're going to do that with a bunch of young guys. We're going to maneuver to get multiple draft picks and guys in the high in the second round, low in the first round, and we're going to get like 5 or 6 dudes and we're going to develop, and that's what we're going to do. And Michael Malone was like, what if instead I didn't play any of those guys because I like veterans, and then I get real mad about it. And so we get to the end of the year and like nothing is positive. Everyone agrees on Christian Brown, no one agrees on anything else. So 0.2 is the total value of replacement player. Christian Brown is like above that. He's like, up in the ones. And then the other guys are all bringing that down, basically, like negative value. And it's because, like, listen, Peyton Watson has shown real flashes, quality defensive player, a lot of tools and a lot of potential, who isn't really a full-fledged offensive player yet, right? Julian Strawther, kind of the reverse, and also was injured for a while. Zeke Naji got a 4-year deal for reasons that I think remain somewhat unclear, and he'll have some stretches where it's like, oh yes, switchable small ball big, and then some stretches where it's like, has that guy played in a game in a month? And no one really knows for sure. The real shame of this season was they trade up to go get Daron Holmes at the end of the first round, and then he tears his Achilles like first summer league game, so misses his entire rookie season. TBD on what he can do. Jalen Pickett, apparently we're finding out in the postmortem reporting, is like the line in the sand between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, as far as like, should he be playing over Russell Westbrook late in games? Do you trust him? I don't know, but like, and he's fine, but maybe not much more than that. We don't know. Hunter Tyson, I think pretty TBD as far as what he can provide. And like, this is half your roster. That's like 6 guys that you've made this bet on. We need to develop these young guys because that's going to be the cheap support for our top heavy roster. And we just haven't seen it yet. So like, you'd imagine, given the state of the Nuggets balance sheet, which we'll talk about in a second, and given where they are in terms of their draft capital, which we'll talk about in a second, the next head coach has to have a plan to develop these young guys, right? Has to be willing to let them go more than Michael Malone would.
You know what's crazy? The Nuggets decided nobody was right in that. All of those guys that you just
everyone
named,
was wrong.
Malone was wrong and Calvin Booth was wrong to get those guys. Like, that's crazy. Like, I understand if you're deciding, hey, we're going to let go of one of those 2 decision makers, one, Michael Malone, or the GM. They got rid of both. Dan. That's, like you said, it cleaning house this late in the season displays an utter lack of trust in both of those top decision makers in the organization. You need your coach to be aligned with your star player, Jokic, and the GM. Anyone that is a broken link on that chain, that's a problem. But what if basically everyone above Jokic, between Jokic and the ownership, everything's broken in between that, and you're deciding that it's over, enough is enough. a week before the postseason begins. I have never seen that in the NBA. Usually you see a coach getting fired, and then Zach Kleiman of the Memphis Grizzlies comes out and says, you know what? We have a sense of urgency here. It's my choice. And they just cleaned house. Like, that is such a statement that is so demonstrative. What Josh Kroenke did is like, yeah, they're both wrong. All the supporting cast and the decisions to play or not to play, I think they're all wrong. I don't trust either of these guys to run my team going forward. That was crazy to me. So, yeah, they need to get better. Also, internal development, the coaching staff, Michael Malone. Wow. I just I don't know if we'll get any spicy comments from Jokic going forward, but that was as crazy. Like, man, think about it. Like, Luka Doncic getting traded it seems like a footnote. I think that's crazy. That's crazy that like a month ago, 2 moves would happen. The Memphis Grizzlies deciding, yeah, we're going to fire Taylor Jenkins, and then upended by Michael Malone and Calvin Booth getting let go 3 games before the postseason. That's nuts. But you know what? It's all coming to a head here because I kind of teased it, that they've been, the reputation around the league. John Hollinger wrote this a couple years ago, is when Tim Connelly left to go to the Minnesota Timberwolves, that like they're not really breaking out the Brinks truck for their organization, their front office members, the GM, the coaches. And right when they do bring out the Brinks truck, it seems like they're going to blow this whole thing up. What's the next big number?
Yeah, so our fourth and final little number this week is actually, I think, the biggest number we've ever had on the show. And if it's not, I can't believe I'm forgetting it, but $230,485,420. That is how many dollars the Denver Nuggets owe Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon combined for the next 2 seasons, 2025 and 2026, according to SpotTrack contract data. Without making any new moves this summer, the Nuggets are going to project it to be about $4.7 million over the first apron next year, and about $7 million under the second apron without doing anything. And as we've established, it seems pretty clear some stuff's going to need to happen. Christian Brown and Peyton Watson also extension eligible, which ought to be interesting come this summer. So we'll see what kind of decisions happen there. Given how limited their financial flexibility is, again, already over the apron for next year. And I mentioned the draft picks. They don't have any picks this summer from a couple of old trades. The Aaron Gordon trade, so their first goes to Orlando. Their second goes to Phoenix because of 5 other deals that happened. And they owe top 5 protected firsts in 2027 and 2029 to, guess who? The Oklahoma City Thunder, who have just been like the tractor beam of all draft picks, because like that was like the arbitrage they did during the 2023 finals. We'll trade you our future picks so we can get a 2023 and a 2024 and a second rounder to take Peyton Watson and Hunter Tyson and be able to get De'Ron Holmes. Anyway, no new picks coming in, picks going out, no financial flexibility to speak of. Given all of that, how close might we be to finding out what the value is of a Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon on the trade block? Because I'm having a hard time finding we retrofit everything around Jokic, pathways that don't involve that.
I think the time is now. Obviously, like Kroenke is demonstrating, like whoever was the architect on the floor and of the books, unacceptable, gone. We can't have this anymore. So we have to rethink everything. I don't think Josh Kroenke decided to fire Calvin Booth and Michael Malone to keep the status quo. There's no way. The question is, what kind of cents on the dollar are you going to be able to trade Jamal Murray, who his estimated plus minus this season ranks 60th in the NBA, and he just got maxed for the next 4 years.
Hasn't even kicked in yet. The extension starts next year. Next year, $208 million coming to him, and he's demonstrated that he is a very slow starter. So if you're going to trade for Jamal Murray's 4-year, $208 million contract, you have to be willing to stomach basically a month of that first deal. Jamal Murray is going to play himself into shape. And, oh, by the way, he is dealing with hamstring injuries continually. He's already torn his ACL. So his injury questions going forward made that max extension already dubious to begin with. And then he got his head coach, Michael Malone, being like, yep, that hamstring, don't know when he's going to be ready. And then he's fired. This is
this is a really tough situation. I wonder what Jeff Schwartz thinks of all this. Now, Jeff Schwartz is a power agent for Excel Sports Management. He has more, according to some sources, has more millions of salary under contract than any other agent in the NBA. And Jeff Schwartz has 7 clients on the Denver Nuggets roster. That is the most clients for any agency or team in the NBA. So you think the CAA, Leon Rose Knicks is crazy? They've got 5 players under CAA, and the Denver Nuggets have 7 under Excel, including Jokic, including Jamal Murray, including Russell Westbrook. Where should we find Russell Westbrook a home for this next year? And then magically happens, Jokic wants Russell Westbrook on his team. It's ebbed and flowed. It's been up and down. But obviously, the organization decided that was not a great move, Calvin Booth, and that wasn't a great way to deploy Russell Westbrook or Pickett. You're out too. But there's DeAndre Jordan, Vlatko Konchar, Peyton Watson, and Dario Saric, all like they're clients of Jeff Schwartz. So I'm wondering, like, to my third eye is opening on this a little bit, where I'm like, are we going to see like a Leon Rose move or a Rob Pelinka move or a Bob Myers move where the agent becomes the decision maker and tries to settle all of these books, where Jeff Schwartz, is that Jeff Schwartz's music? And he decides to take over the front office. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but crazier things have happened in this league. Leon Rose is leading the New York Knicks right now with World Wide West, and one of his clients, Tom Thibodeau, is the coach. And oh, by the way, one of Leon Rose's number 1 clients, they just traded for Karl Anthony Towns. So you can say this is a crazy plot, but who's going to figure out how to allocate this money or find the best places for Jamal Murray, for Nikola Jokic, or the best supporting cast for Jokic to finally find that all-star next to him? Maybe it's Jeff Schwartz. I don't know who Josh Kroenke wants to run that franchise. So we'll see.
Well, yeah,
Man.
I mean, Tom, crazier things have happened. Like, for example, firing your championship-winning head coach 3 games before the end of the season.
Pretty drastic. Like, no, that's beyond the pale. Bringing on the agent for Jokic as the cheap decision maker, that's crazy. That's totally off the charts. Meanwhile, firing Michael Malone right before the playoffs and firing the GM too. I have a theory that this is all because of Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison meeting for coffee one day. Like, that is where this all germinates from, is that moment when Rob Pelinka was approached by Nico Harrison to trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. That's when the rest of the NBA decided, yep, there are no more rules. We're done.
Yeah, we're playing Calvin ball, but not Calvin Booth, apparently, unfortunately.
This is just crazy, the NBA. Hey, what if a player right before the postseason decides, I'm going to start a podcast with JJ Redick, who's working at ESPN, and then I'm going to decide that's going to be my head coach for my NBA team and hire that's just a minor blip on the radar of this NBA season, that JJ Redick is now the head coach for Luka Doncic in the Lakers. The NBA is crazy, man.